Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another live stream and second one today. And I want to introduce a good friend of mine, Don Keith. He is, how can I describe Don? He is a total patriot. I think we can say both for Britain and for America. And he's also one of Tommy Robinson's best buddies. So if he's a friend of Tommy, he's a friend of mine. And he's a friend of every single person that's in our movement in the UK. So you're very welcome, Don. Tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into all this, and how you managed to get into the madness that is our movement.
Well, thank you very much for that gracious introduction, Richard. I really appreciate it. I do consider you and Tommy and your whole crew good friends now. But as far as how I got involved with Tommy, like everybody else, I don't know how many people over here are really familiar with Tommy. There's quite a few, more than you would think. But I followed him online for a while. I was just scrolling through one day and I saw this interesting kid. Basically, he was a kid back then. It's probably been 10 years since I first discovered Tommy. And, he was just right by himself. And these guys were coming up to him, like these groups of guys. And they were Muslims, of course. And they were giving him what for. And he was giving it right back to him. He wasn't scared at all. I was like, wow, who is this guy with all this fire, But so, he's very, very passionate. His passion is one of the things that turned me on. So I've been following ever since then. And probably around 2018, right before COVID, or right about the time COVID started, I started messaging him, just making comments, or whatever. And he would sometimes comment, or he would repost some of the things I had said. So we just kind of bonded online at first. And then, I planned a trip to the UK and just a shot in the dark. I'm like, well, I'm going to see if this guy wants to meet up. And actually he did. I was surprised. It was like, yeah, we met and we've been friends ever since. But yeah, he's just a great guy. He's a passionate patriot. That's the kind of people I like. I like patriots. I like people who love their country, who aren't scared to speak up, and who love freedom and are in that fight for freedom. So I think that's what turned me on to Tommy the most, is his patriotism.
Yeah, and I think iron sharpens iron. So I think if you're with someone that's brave, it makes you brave. So if you see Tommy doing something crazy, you go, oh, we can go one better than that, and you kind of he did something crazy. Let's see what I can do that's really crazy, and that's kind of the way it's been. And there's some really great people in this movement, some very, very brave people, and again, it's the sort of thing that consumes every part of life.
You're one of the bravest, Richard.
Well, thanks. I think brave or stupid. I think depending on how well you know me. I think some people think I'm just a bit stupid, but no. I mean,
no, I don't think you're stupid at all. I think you're bold and brave, and I think you're passionate. And I think you love your country, and I think Britain's greater for having you, and they need more people like you.
Well, thanks for that, Don. And again, the feeling is reciprocated, because you don't have to come halfway across the world to come and help us and stand with us. And you've done that twice for the last two events. And what did you make? I mean, obviously, you've watched what's been going on in the country for a long time. What did you make of the events that we did? You weren't there for St. George's Day, were you? Did you see St. George's Day online?
No, I wasn't there for St. George's Day. No, I was there for the June 1st rally or demonstration, and then the July 27th. And then before that, I traveled the country with Tommy for a full week, and got to see exactly what he does in his work as a journalist, as a documentarian. I was actually there for some of the films that he's made. So that I felt very privileged to be a part of that. But so I got to see all that stuff. But as far as the demonstrations go, they were top notch. They were professional. They were put on professionally. I told this story. I was on Timcast last week. I told this story on Timcast about just how much fine detail that Tommy and the people who helped him plan these events are with when it comes to presentation, not only presentation, but as far as making sure they're secure, making sure they're peaceful. I mean, we had 150, 160 stewards at I know at the last one, maybe a little less than that at the first one. Then we had 50 security. And at the beginning of the day, I feel very privileged as the only American who was part of your guys' entourage there. But from 8 o'clock in the morning, when we all met up, the first thing Tommy says to everyone, hey, stewards, if you see anyone, trying to cause trouble, anyone who's not being peaceful, you let the security know, they'll let us know, and we'll handle it immediately. And I think we had maybe one incident, which was one of our guys who had a little too much to drink. I think you actually took a shot in the eye, but that was the only thing.
Yeah, that was the 1st of June one. Yeah.
The 1st of June. And that's, for 50,000 people rallied to have nothing occur. And then the next one was 100,000 to have nothing occur. And then what was just laughable, anyone who knows how Tommy puts on his events, for him to leave the country and then riots start after this terrible massacre that happened in Southport, for anybody to accuse Tommy Robinson of inciting violence, inciting riots, when we've seen how he meticulously put so much effort into making sure his demonstrations that he's a part of, making sure they're peaceful. I mean, and so when Keir Starmer or the authorities, I don't think anyone's actually come out and said that Tommy incited, but they have alluded to it. In my opinion, it's just laughable. Lots of people online and lots of media folks have accused Tommy of inciting, and it's just a joke to me when I hear them say that.
I think it's the biggest slander in British history. I really do. I think it's incredible because, and the thing is, they know, because me and Tommy did the police liaison. We met for both events. We met with the police once a week, sometimes twice a week, running up to the event. We told them exactly what our intentions were. We told them about our security plan. We told them about, how good the stewards were, how good the security were. We for the one in Trafalgar Square, we upped the security by, normally have, well, I'm not going to say the numbers, but we more than doubled the number of guys that we had doing security. The stewards, like you say, I think there's about 150 stewards, which is just absolutely phenomenal. And they did a great job. And there was one incident. And this is something that a lot of people didn't see. There's a little bit of video gone out, but the police on the Trafalgar Square event, the police marched a guy with a Palestinian flag within 20 yards of our demonstration. Now I was out backstage. I saw the flag, and I grabbed a couple of the security guys with me, and thankfully there were stewards back on the road as well. And we got up onto the road. And this guy had gone tearing up the road. Some of the lads had gone up after him. The police were there with the batons out. That was the big money shot for the. I think Sky TV were with him, with this guy, or certainly there was a broadcast camera following this guy up the road. They wanted the money shot of our guys attacking a guy with a Palestinian flag, and then the police steaming in to rescue him. Right. So this was a complete setup. I'm not saying the police we were dealing with did it, but somebody did it in that setup. So we bailed out onto the back road. And we just put 10 guys across the road and linked arms, and just, it was like, you shall not pass. It was like, you're not getting through us. If you're gonna get to the guy with the Palestinian flag, you've got to go through us. And thankfully, that diffused the situation. And the guys that came out to challenge him, they got it. We were just saying, listen, this is what they want. Don't give them what they want. But again, it's very difficult in that sort of kinetic environment, dealing with lots of people that are very annoyed about this and calming them down. And the police are not being very helpful. The police have got the batons out, they've got the right helmets on. And that was what the media wanted. They want the money shot. And because of the stewards and the security guys, they didn't get the money shot. And it was diffused. But it was believe you me, it was very, very close to going completely wrong. So, that's the sort of stuff that people don't see. The mainstream media don't see it. But the point I was making about talking to the police know from they've talked to us for 2 months, me and Tommy, right? And we've told them every single meeting, we are going to make sure this is peaceful. You play your part, we'll play our part. They know. We've told them what our intention is. We've told them our intention is to build a peaceful movement. It changes the vibe. It changes the way everything's perceived. We don't want the perception of thuggery, as Keir Starmer likes to call it. We've said we want to build a peaceful movement that's actually going to change the country, because you can't do that with rioting and throwing bricks, So we told the police that for 2 months before the event. All those meetings, the police know. We've recorded this, so we've got recordings of us saying that. And then the riot happens. The first thing that Tommy does the day after the rioting is makes an appeal for calm. And I think I counted 6 appeals for calm. You've got to remember, he's on his holiday with his family, right? And he's doing streams saying, guys, calm down. He could have just said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just sit by the pool. England could burn. I'm not going to bother. But he made appeals.
I would argue that those riots actually occurred because of the lack of Tommy Robinson's presence, not because he had anything to do with inciting.
Yeah.
I would say that him not being there is a major reason. If Tommy had been at those places, that would not have happened.
I agree.
You talked about a peaceful riot and how what I remember specifically before any of this started, Tommy and I had personal conversations, and one of the things we discussed, and I said, Tommy, why Martin Luther King was so successful. Martin Luther King had the most successful protest of all time, leading to the civil rights movement. And I said, that's why Martin Luther King was so successful. You had all these images that the American people saw of these peaceful blacks in Selma and different places in the South demonstrating peacefully. And then you had these tyrannical police officers using German shepherds biting them, water cannons from the fire department hosing them down, all these brutal images you see, and then you see these peaceful people. And so Tommy and I had that conversation. He totally agreed. That's exactly how he wanted his movements to be. So that's why I just have to laugh when anybody says Tommy has anything to do with any violence or incitement.
It's an obscenity because it puts Tommy at risk, it puts his family at risk, it puts any of us who are involved in the movement at risk, because it's a complete demonization and a lie. I mean, I was talking to a guy last week, talking to a guy last week about this, and he doesn't watch, he's not on Twitter, he's not on social media, and he just bought the line from the government and from the mainstream media that this was our movement and we're all violent thugs and all the rest of it. And I was like, well, I says, okay, let's put all that to one side. I says, do you believe in what we're doing? In other words, do you agree with what we're doing? Oh, yes, I agree 100%. I says, so you don't know anything about it. You agree with what we're doing. And yet you're believing what the mainstream media are telling you. And that is the problem, Don. Okay, we've got, Tommy's now got 1 million followers on Twitter.
I know, it's crazy.
So
he would have about 3 million if they hadn't got, canceled his account a couple of years ago.
Well, we all got cancelled. Every single person that was associated with Tommy. I'd never, when I speak, I'm very, very careful. I mean, obviously, the free speech laws are getting tighter and tighter in the UK, but I'm always very careful not to incite anything. I'm always very careful not to say anything. Just even from a moral point of view, you don't want to say anything that's wrong. So I've never broken any hate speech laws. If I had, I would have been dragged out of my house, kicking and screaming, and locked up for goodness knows how long. Tommy's the same. He would have been, if he ever said anything that broke the ridiculous hate speech laws in the UK, he would have been dragged off and he'd have been sent to prison. No doubt about it. So there isn't anything there on that. And even with that, the Facebook and Twitter, as it was then, and all the other social media platforms completely vaporized us because we were getting traction, and they didn't want us getting traction because we've always had the same idea. What we do is not based on race. What we do is not violent. What we do is democratic. What we do is based on freedom, not based on trying to impose some sort of totalitarian system. So we're actually, and I keep saying this to people, we've got to keep remembering this, Don. We are the good guys, right? Mm-hmm. We are the ones who can actually do something to change this country for the better. These guys that we're standing against, that we're resisting peacefully, these guys are the bad guys. It is a battle between good and evil. I absolutely believe that. And we all got vaporized in 2018. Was it 2009? Anyway, 2018, 2009. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, they just took all their accounts off us, and that was it. We were, so all your, I mean, it might not sound like anything getting your account taken off you on Facebook, but like all your mates, all the guys I was in the army with, all my friends in England, family, gone. Nobody can find you anymore. So
well, there's a lot of effort and work people put into, even if you're not doing it to try to make a presence on social media. You got a lot of people on there that mean a lot to you. You got a lot of memories on there, videos, pictures, and so when they shut it down, it hurts. And one of the things if they do try to bring Tommy in for anything to do with the Southport riots or that week of rioting, I think I'm not 100% how your court system works, but I think I would march 150 stewards and 50 security into that courtroom and let each one of them testify of just how much effort Tommy puts into making sure everything's peaceful.
Well, I do, John. I put the police on the stand. I put the police who spoke to us for 2.5 months before those two events and say, okay, guys, what we said in those meetings, how reasonable we were. You guys take the stand, whether they would or not, but I suppose if they're forced to, they'd have to, wouldn't they? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, the whole thing's crazy. And I mean, you talk about you don't know how the legal system works. The problem is none of us know how the legal system works. And that's the problem right now. We're in a situation where people are getting locked. We were talking about before we came online. People are getting locked up for shouting at police dogs.
I saw that. And one woman was purchasing eggs.
Yeah.
They thought she was going to throw them or something. And so they locked her up. Yeah. But the guy shouting at the police dog, that is unbelievable to me. I cannot believe it. That's crazy.
It's crazy. We've had an ex-train driver, 61 years old, never been in trouble with the police in his life. He sang the little ditty about Allah and said some nasty words to the police, and he's in jail for 2 years or 18 months. Now he's his wife's carer, right? So his wife's obviously infirm. That isn't just a miscarriage of justice. That is a sadistic judge. That is a cruel judge who has no humanity in him. And, people talk about contempt of court. To me, what these men are doing is bringing everything into disrepute and destroying everything. And
the court has contempt for society. That's what's going on here. The contempt's going the other way.
Exactly. Yeah. When and as well as that, Don, at the same time, they're putting. I mean, let's get it right. People who should not be in prison. For making a Facebook post, shouting at a police dog, or even shouting at a police officer, you shouldn't be getting 18 months in prison. It's different if you're going and burning a shop down or smashing someone on the head with a brick. Throw the book at them. I don't have a problem with that. If people are rioting, genuinely rioting, they deserve to go to prison. No doubt in my mind. And I've said that from the beginning, and we've always said that. If you cross that line, it's on you.
Well, they've taken a play out of the playbook of the Democrats here for the January 6th. We've got people here who've rotted in jail for 3 years for crossing the threshold of the building that they own, the Capitol building. Some of them were in there just to take pictures. Some of them just stepped across the threshold and walked back out, and they've been locked up for 2 or 3 years. So these guys, whether it's the UK or whether it's America, the playbook's the same because they're all Marxists. They're all feeding off each other. They're watching what the other one does. Does that type of totalitarianism, does that work? Let's try it over here. So they saw what happened in January 6th. They've seen what happens when the government was weaponized against Donald Trump. And, you and I talked about this before. I called Tommy Robinson the working class Donald Trump, because every single thing that they've done to Donald Trump, they've used against Tommy Robinson. They've weaponized the government. They've weaponized the justice system. They've weaponized the media. They've gone after, they've ruined his, family life. They've millions of dollars. I know Tommy spent millions. They've cost Donald Trump millions of dollars paying for solicitors and lawyers. Threats on his life, same both ways. So it's the exact same playbook. And, some might argue that Tommy's even more resilient because he doesn't have $4 billion to fight it with. You know what I mean? But those two men, if I could compare any two men on the planet, it would be those two. Their similar circumstances, their courage, their grit, the way they stand up to pressure. I've never seen anything like it. But those two gentlemen, Tommy Robinson and Donald Trump, are cut from the same cloth, I believe.
I totally agree with that, Don. I mean, what do you think? I mean, obviously, in terms of what's happened in America, how do we fight against this? I mean, obviously, you guys in America, I've got some ideas of what we do over here. What are you guys going to do? You've got this election coming up. How confident are you that you're going to have the numbers to basically do what you need? Because again, let's get it right. It's not about winning a slim majority, because the system is so rigged now. You absolutely probably need to get a massive majority to actually
too big to rig is what we say.
Too big to rig. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Too big to rig. Yeah. We need to remember that 5 years time. Yeah.
But a lot of the good thing here, I think they're still going to try to cheat because they're Democrats. They're going to, the old saying goes, it's not how many votes you get, it's who's counting the votes. And I think that was particularly true in 2020. We saw a lot of, and there's video evidence of this. There's GPS evidence of this. If you've ever seen the movie 2000 Mules by Dinesh D'Souza, where they use this geofencing data, basically, where you track a particular cell phone, and you could see this particular the one particular mule. There were many of them, but this, you could track any particular one to different drop boxes, because COVID, they had all these drop boxes, which were unconstitutional, by the way, where you could track these mules going from drop box to drop box, dropping off hundreds or thousands of ballots. in various different ones. You see vans pull up and guys just dumping bags into these drop boxes. But yeah, luckily, I think a lot of the states have are putting some measures into place. They're putting video cameras at any of these drop box locations that are legal. But the one thing they used COVID for is in our Constitution. The Constitution here gives the state legislatures only the state legislatures the right to make to determine how elections are run, right? To make election laws. And what happened with COVID is they used COVID as an excuse. Judges, city councils, mayors, they made their own election laws and usurped the authority of the state legislature. So in many instances, in many states, our elections were unconstitutional. You may agree that there's no fraud, but you can't look at our Constitution and say that they were lawful, because they were not. They were unconstitutional. So that was, in my opinion, was a reason for the states to withhold their or return the electors to the states and just really recount or redo it. And they, none of the states wanted to recount because they were all scared to say there was election fraud because it was a big taboo. That's why I believe and people say, oh, there was 61 or 64, 60 something trial, or they attempted to get the information heard, and none of the judges would even hear the cases because they said the plaintiffs lacked standing, which means they couldn't prove that they were affected directly by the election fraud. So a lot of the states have made laws now where they've got the cameras. You've got Laura Trump's in charge of the RNC. It's debatable how good of a job she's doing right now, to be honest with you. But I hope.
What's the RNC, Don?
Republican National, the Republican National Committee, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've got her in charge of that, and so I'm hoping that they have enough scrutiny there that they'll be able to fight some of any fraud that could potentially take place. The plan is to have 100,000 poll watchers on our side there watching to make sure everything's legitimate, all the ballots are counted properly, not double scanned, ballots don't go missing like happened in 2020. We now have evidence of that, that ballots that are missing, double scanned ballots. And my biggest fear is that if the allegations were true about the Dominion voting machines or any of the voting machines that were potentially taking fractions of a vote and giving a Trump vote to Biden, it doesn't matter how big you rig if that happens, because then all the votes are rigged and a percentage of all the votes will go to Biden. So I don't really see how it could be too big to rig if these machines aren't monitored to make sure first of all, legally, none of these machines were supposed to be online that were counting these ballots, okay, or that these voting machines were not supposed to be online, and it was proven later that many of them were, I believe. So if that happens, it's going to be a lot tougher, but I'm just hoping the scrutiny we have in place is going to prevent some of that. But like I said, the Democrats are still going to try to cheat, in my opinion.
Of course. And I mean, what about these polls that have been saying that Kamala Harris is ahead of Trump? I mean, how can they even think that? Is this just the media?
You got to look at the poll. You got to look at the polling pool. Who are they polling to get this information? Of course, and Trump's still ahead in as far as the electoral college goes, right? But they'll pick a particular state or here in a particular polling pool that many feel like the polling pool is heavily skewed Democrat. So if you take a polling pool that's full of predominantly Democrats and you poll everyone, of course, you're going to get a result for Kamala Harris. But if you look, just the first night of the Democratic National Convention is this week, and Don Lemon, of all people, who used to work for CNN, he's a terrible liberal, really bad. You know what Don Lemon is?
Yeah.
Okay, so Don Lemon was in Chicago this week, and he was just on the street interviewing these people at the Democratic National Convention, and I don't know how it was a ton of people. And almost all of them were black, and half of them said they were voting for Donald Trump. Half of them. Now, if you can get 50% of the old saying was if a Republican got 15% of the black vote, then they were going to win the election. And I think Donald Trump has got upwards of 30 plus, at least. I would say that's being generous, that he's got 30% or more of the black population. If that's true, there's absolutely no way Kamala Harris could win it. And just today, I'm seeing that it's looking like John F. Kennedy Jr. may abandon his race and put his support behind Trump. So if that happened, that'd be another huge win, because right now he is taking some of the Trump vote. So all those people who were going to support JFK Jr., I believe would go to Donald Trump, especially if he throws his support behind him.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic. I mean, I really do think. I mean, even what did you make of the assassination attempt and everything that's gone on around that? I mean, to me, looking at it from an outsider, I just said that is a miracle. That's just a bona fide big angel.
Trump himself said that only God could have done that. Trump himself said it, you know. But it was it was terrible, actually. And you know what? It was the worst job I've ever seen happen by the FBI, the Secret Service, law enforcement, local law enforcement who was there. The law enforcement there, and there was a recent video that came out, I think it was last week, of one of the police's body cam talking about this was right after it happened. He was running around panicking. He was like, "We told them to put somebody on that roof. We told them to put someone on that roof." So there was evidence right there that they were told to put somebody on that roof. I mean, it was like the what we call the catbird seat here in the state. It was the best shot someone could have had at someone speaking at that podium, and there was nobody there. Furthermore, there was a perch directly behind that building with a window looking directly at the roof where that assassin was. And the three people who were supposed to be in that room had all taken a break at the time that he was on that roof. Now, what are the chances of that? It looks now, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, but it's kind of hard not to be when you look at everything how did an assassin know on that particular day that the security was going to be in such disarray, such lack? So coincidence, maybe. It's hard to believe if it was coincidence that they could be that negligent and that incompetent in their duties on that particular day.
Yeah, and it was interesting that it was within weeks after that the coup against Biden goes in, because obviously they knew that Biden couldn't beat Trump, and they parachute Kamala in. But I mean, surely she's barely literate as well. She can hardly speak, can she? I mean, she can't.
Well, she didn't win one electoral vote in the primary. When she ran for president in 2020, she was the first to bail because she couldn't even get 1% of the primary vote. No one voted for her. You're talking about someone in Kamala Harris who is a terrible liberal. She's way more progressive than Joe Biden. She's, if anything transgender, she advocates for. Anything abortion, she advocates for. She locked up more men when she was the prosecutor in California than Bill Clinton probably. And then she laughed about it. She locked up black men for smoking marijuana, and then laughed about it she was on Charlemagne the God's radio program. And she laughed when they asked her, had she smoked marijuana? She said, yeah, and then laughed about it. She said, oh, I did in hell. She thought it was really funny. But, the black men she locked up in prison, they aren't laughing about it. She locked them up for the thing that she's laughing about doing. Kamala Harris, when she was a senator in 2019, this is what a Marxist you are. You talk about totalitarian. She said that if she couldn't get the drug companies, the pharmaceutical companies, to lower the price of their drugs, she would just snatch the patents away from them. The patents, these are legally binding documents that give the ownership of these medicines, these pharmaceuticals, to these pharmaceutical companies. And you've got a politician saying out loud that she, as the government, is just going to come in and take it from you. Now, if that's not communism, I don't know what is.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, the reality is that what we've seen in England, I mean, if there's people watching this in the States, and you're kind of, well, I'm not going to vote, or it's not important. Getting Trump into the White House, to me, is a global event. If Trump doesn't get elected, the freedom is going to go. The lights of freedom are going to go out everywhere, because you've no freedom in China, you've no freedom in Russia. The UK and Europe is just going from bad to worse. I mean, we don't have any freedom now. We literally don't have freedom in the UK. Mm-hmm. And if you guys don't get Trump in, I think the world is in for a very, very dark. It's going to go into a dark age, and that's how important this election is. So if you're watching this in the States, for goodness sake, register, vote, and get out and vote, because, like you say, you need it to be too big to rig. Like, that's a great saying, too big to rig. We need to remember that. If we make it through to 2029 for our next election, we need to make what we do too big to rig. And what about you, Don? How engaged are you in all this in the States? What's your sort of place in the jigsaw, so to speak?
I'm just doing what I can online, my social media, whatever journalism I can do to support Trump. I do. I try to use my voice online. That's the biggest voice I think anybody has these days. Is if Twitter, especially, or X, excuse me. I think that's the biggest voice anybody has today. So as much as I can post about Trump, I'm kind of back and forth. Americans are probably mad at me because I post so much about you guys because I'm personal friends with you guys now, and I'm certainly I love my country and I'm very passionate about my country. But you guys are in more trouble than we are right now. You don't have the protections that we have right now. You've lost your Second Amendment. We say here our Second Amendment protects our First Amendment. You guys don't have the Second Amendment to protect your First Amendment for. That's why your free speech is going like it is. Not to mention, you get these tyrants in office and we should probably discuss that too. I know the conservatives weren't great for your country. They allowed a lot of this illegal immigration to flood into your country, and it's like it is now because you had a long reign of conservatives. But now you've got the Labor Party. You've got this guy named Keir Starmer, who's the prime minister. And I don't know if the people in the UK know everything there is to know about Keir Starmer, but Keir Starmer is a terrible Marxist. He is a communist at heart. He is the worst kind of Marxist because he's a Trotskyite. Now, you may know this. I don't know. He used to write for a magazine called Socialist Alternatives. He was an editor-writer for that magazine. Him and a group of other guys who got together that they were all self-avowed Trotskyists, right? And Trotskyist was the worst kind of Marxist. Trotsky was so radical that Stalin kicked him out of the Communist Party and exiled him to Kazakhstan because after the Bolshevik Revolution, Trotsky, he wanted to implement socialism immediately and then go global with it across Russia's border using military force. Well, Stalin didn't want to do that. Stalin wanted to continue for a while. He wanted to do a soft phasing out of the Soviet Union's version of capitalism and roll into socialism because he thought that would be better for the economy. I'm drawing a parallel here, so bear with me. He thought that would be better for the economy. Well, Trotsky saw that as a betrayal to the communist movement, and he wanted to overthrow Stalin. So Stalin kicked him out of the Communist Party, exiled him to Kazakhstan. But the point I'm trying to make here is you can see that Trotskyism, you can see that attitude in Starmer because Trotsky didn't have the patience to wait. And while you may have had some soft socialist leanings there with the Conservative Party and some totalitarian, Keir Starmer has gotten into office, and within weeks, he's shown you how dedicated he is to his communist movement. He wants to immediately arrest any opposition voices for the slightest little thing and throw you all in jail. So the UK people right now should be very, very afraid of Keir Starmer. I think they are. I saw he's like 28% approval right now. But that guy, if you don't get him out of office within your next election or call a special election or whatever it is you guys do there, you're going to be in big trouble. That guy is dangerous.
I totally agree, and I'm glad you've highlighted that. And again, to sort of, for people watching this in the States, this is a warning to the United States. This is what you'll get with Kamala Harris as well. So it's not going to be any less painful. It's going to be probably more painful because we know how draconian that Biden was. I think the issue with Starmer is I think he's overreached, and he doesn't realize he's overreached yet, because the reality is in the UK, I've got to be careful what I say here. I think people will only be pushed so far before there is a massive standing up. And and again, I'm not condoning violence in any way. I'm talking about if you have a mass peaceful movement that just goes on general strike and everybody strikes and everybody takes to the streets, what can the state do? The state will cease to be able to function. So, and we could be pushed to that stage with Stalin. They did this, funny enough, they did it the opposite way in the miners' strike in the 1980s. Margaret Thatcher, who was obviously a right-wing globalist, decided to close the mines down. She didn't want to mine coal anymore because it wasn't economically viable. Of course, it would have been if it had been done properly. That's another story. So Thatcher basically went against the miners in exactly the same way that Starmer's going against the so-called far right, which isn't the far right. It's just us trying to get our country back and trying to have a genuine functioning democracy. Because we haven't had democracy.
Where does most of your energy come from in the UK? Does it not come from coal-fired power plants? Where does your
not
energy
anymore?
come?
No, not anymore. There still are some, but it's gas, nuclear. and those ridiculous windmills that are all over the North Sea. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And of course, Starmer's going to double down. I think when people realise that Granny's dying of hypothermia because of Keir Starmer, and Grandad's been in prison for 6 years because he said something hurty about the local jihadi bride or the local jihadi, then maybe they'll actually wake up and say, hold on, we need to change this. But the problem we've got, Don, is we don't have a political alternative. People talk about the Reform Party, and I get in loads of trouble on my stream for talking about the Reform Party before the election. And again, a lot of people in the comments won't like this, but I don't really care because I've got to just tell the truth. Before the election, I was kind of talked into saying, well, look, let's get everyone to vote for reform. The Conservatives deserve a good kick. And I'm saying, well, hold on a minute. What are we going to get with the Labour Party? It's going to be pretty bad. But I kind of, against my better judgment, said, okay, we'll get everyone to vote reform. Not that my influence makes that much of a difference anyway, but I kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And I think splitting the vote by getting reform, 5 seats, and giving Starmer 120 seat majority in Parliament is an absolute catastrophe for the country. It was a massive.
You're seeing it already. You're seeing the results of it right now.
It was a massive strategic mistake. So we cannot get this guy out until 5 years' time. He's got to be there for 5 years. It's almost impossible unless we have a situation where everybody takes to the streets and the government actually falls because the country is, there's a general strike or whatever. He's there. So what we need to do.
Right. So as I understand you, tell me if I'm wrong here in your parliament, the way it worked to get him out early, someone from his party pretty much would have to have a vote of no confidence, correct? And then they could vote him out, right?
Yes, but you're still going to be left with someone that shares his politics, because the Labour Party, through and through, the Labour Party is a communist party, in my opinion. It's hard left to the core. None of them are any different. Starmer was put up as the moderate alternative to Jeremy Corbyn. But Starmer's actually, like you say, with his Trotskyist.
I think he's left of Corbyn. I think he's left of Corbyn.
Far worse. He's Corbyn with totalitarianism, and it's sent a chill through everybody in the country who's got a brain and sees what's happening and going, hold on a minute, this is not business as normal. And of course, but we've had this for so long with the Conservatives being not conservative, and then Blair came in, and Blair was a socialist to the core as well, and they brought in all the identity politics with Blair. They brought in all this nonsense. Then of course the Brexit vote happened, and it sent the whole of the liberal elite establishment into a complete meltdown. Because the way I see it, Don, I call it the evil triad. It's made up of Islamists, globalists, and communists, and they're in power now. The Islamists, the globalists, and the communists are running the show. The globalists was the Conservative Party. The Islamists, well, we know who they are. And the communists are now in power and going for it big time. And like you say, these people are extremely radical, and they're not scared of using force against the little people. So
I think the globalists see that. I think the globalists feel like the Islamists they're making a huge mistake. They're a miscalculation of what they're doing. They think the Islamists are on their side, but as soon as Islam becomes predominant, they're going to see exactly. You think Islam's going to put up with transgenderism or the LGBTQ, any of that stuff? Not going to happen. As soon as they become predominant, all that stuff's going to be eradicated. There's going to be Sharia law, and everybody's either going to be exiled. They're going to be, they're going to follow the Quran is what's going to happen.
Well, and what we'll have in the meantime, we'll have a marriage of convenience between the communists and the Islamists, because the communists will probably think they can use the Islamist bully boys as their stormtroopers to intimidate the rest of the population and terrify them.
We see that globally with the communists now and the Islamist countries. The same thing you're talking about.
Exactly. And the other issue is with if you look at Iran. I mean, I had a friend that lived in Iran during the revolution. He said, once the revolution had happened and the Islamists had taken over, they just killed all the communists. I mean, it was as simple as that. They just, they just took them off and they shot them. So the fact that this is happening, if you think about England, when I grew up in England, okay, there was a bit of migration. It was everybody got on pretty well. I had a lot of black friends, a lot of Indian friends. There was always a problem, to be honest with you. There was always a problem with Pakistani Muslims. They were always very separatist. They never mixed. They didn't want to make friends with you. That it's just my sort of experience at school. In fact, even when I was in the 80s, when I was first went to secondary school, it's equivalent to your high school. In the 80s, when I went to secondary school, the kids in my class, there's quite a few lads from from Pakistani backgrounds. Their uncles and their cousins were fighting against the Russians. They were doing jihad. These were guys that were from England, were going out to Pakistan, across the border into Afghanistan, and fighting against the Russians in the 1980s. So if you think about that, that was what, where are we, 40 years ago, exactly 40 years ago, right? So 40 years ago, there's kids in my class who've got family members that live in England that are going fighting jihad, right? Now, how many more jihads have there been since then? So how much military experience is there in that community? That's a question that I don't think anybody's asked. And I think that's one of the reasons that the state is terrified of the Islamists, because they know if they press the big red button, you know, they're going to have a lot of guys who know exactly what to do and how to do it, that they can activate very, very quickly. And I think that's why the state is absolutely terrified of upsetting the Muslim community in the UK. And that's why they're on about passing basically Islamic blasphemy law. So we will have, under this parliament, if Keir Starmer gets his way, we will have an Islamic blasphemy law. We will have Sharia law in the UK.
I don't doubt it at all. I mean, Keir Starmer is such a ruthless communist. You know, they asked him, this is how dedicated he is to communism. They asked him, if he had a family member who was severely ill, would he seek private medical care? And he said no. He would not seek. He would stick to the public domain. So if you've got a dying family member and you're that dedicated that you won't seek private care for them, that's how dedicated you are to the movement. You know, and they wanted to advocate. They wanted to constitutionalize things like, you know, in his the Socialist Alternatives, that group I told you he was with earlier. You may have already known that, but they wanted to constitutionalize things like feminism, green politics. They wanted the trade unions to have total control over industry and community. So the guy is as communist as they come. In my lifetime, I haven't seen anyone like Starmer as prime minister. I mean, he is a ruthless guy, and he really needs to go by whatever method you guys have there in as far as your political system.
Well, I mean, it's going to be very difficult, but I think we've got to try and fight it politically. We've got to try and, like we said before we came online, we've got to do it, you know, in the same way Martin Luther King Jr. did it. We've got to do it peacefully, and we've got to do it through the democratic process. And obviously, what I mean, it's not a secret what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a cultural movement that's made up of all races, all backgrounds, that, you know, love the UK, that are patriotic and believe in basically good old-fashioned values. And there's a big Christian emphasis in that as well, which is something I think that's very, very healthy, and is something that if you don't have that in politics, you know, somebody put on Twitter the other day, you know, you can't mix religion and politics. And I just, they're inextricably linked. You can't, you can't, if you're a Christian, that will affect your political outlook. If you're an atheist, that will affect your political outlook. That, you know, would be things like whether it be abortion, euthanasia, whatever. It's gonna affect what you think and what you believe. And
well, tell that to a Muslim, because Muslims, that's exactly what most Muslim countries are theocratic, right? So their religion is their politics. So exactly. That's how devoted they are. That's how passionate they are. They're so passionate about their politics because it is their religion to them. That's why they seek to get in these countries and change it not only demographically but politically as well.
Exactly. So, and what they're doing in the UK at the minute is they're using democracy against itself. So they're using democracy to destroy democracy. They're using law to destroy law. So they're devaluing everything. The Islamists want to devalue and destroy everything that we hold dear, and the communists do as well. So they've got a common cause. They want to completely gut out all the institutions and fill them with their lackeys and their, you know, the commissars. And it's happening, and it's been happening for a long time.
Same playbook here. They're using democracy against democracy. That's why you saw during COVID and after COVID, and still even to this day, the government is using private companies to chill our free speech because they can't do it constitutionally. But, you know, like I said before, you know, the sole purpose of our Second Amendment was to protect us from a tyrannical government. Our Second Amendment protects our first. We say here. Unfortunately, you guys lost whatever is your version of Second Amendment was there, and you don't really have a constitution. Your constitution is not really considered a supreme document. It's a collection of different policies and acts from Parliament, and they're all scattered about. So I think that's the one strength we have. You guys probably don't, is an actual constitution that is the supreme law. But the thing for you guys, you got to continue. I know so many people are being chilled right now because they're scared. They can't lock up 1 million people. They cannot. Your jails are already full right now. I saw they're going to release criminals now in the UK, thousands of criminals to make room for all these free speech violators and the opposition as they see it. I saw it was a clip from one of your news programs. I think it was just today. I saw they're going to start releasing all these criminals in your jails to make room for you guys who are using free speech.
But again, there won't be, there won't be enough room. And what you've got to hope is that as we get locked up, if I get locked up, then somebody comes in behind me and goes, okay, well, I'm going to pick up not the rifle, but you know what I mean? I'm going to
pick up the flag
and keep moving on, because that's what's needed. And I think that the reality is that what's happened in the UK is that there's been a massive chill gone through, even people on social media. And I've gone, do you know what? I was doing one video maybe every 2 days. Now I'm doing 2 videos a day. Since this happened, I'm doing twice as much social media posting as I did before. And I'm going to, obviously it's all about time and, finding the time to do all that. But I'm just going to try and keep pumping out, this is totalitarianism. We've got to resist this. We've got to stand up against this peacefully, legally, but we've got to resist this by, however we can to kick back against what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And because at the end of the day, there is no other voice. The only thing we've got is Twitter and YouTube, and how long we have YouTube, goodness knows, So it is a chilling time. But to me, and even if they take us off every platform, we'll get leaflets printed. We'll go door to door. We'll just talk to people. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way that people did it. Because if they do manage to close Twitter down in the UK, and they do manage to get us all off every single social media platform, we've got to be in a position that we're resilient enough that we can keep building the movement and keep doing what we need to do. And, to me, you just keep going, Don. You just don't stop. You keep going.
You got to keep going. And they're going to, if they try to lock Tommy up, which, who knows what's going to happen there. But if they do, everybody's got to be Tommy Robinson. Everybody's got to be Richard Inman. Somebody's got to pick up your guys' flags if you fall. That's just the way it is. So everybody's got to participate. Everybody's got to try to coordinate and get as many people out as possible. You got to continue to have these demonstrations. Obviously, we said peacefully already, but the bigger they get and the more peaceful they are, the more of an impact they're gonna make.
And so, I think the Muslim community have got to realize as well that we're not. There is no element of what we're doing that wants to come and attack their communities. That's like, I mean, it's probably even I'm wasting my breath saying that because they're not going to get seeing this, but that's the reality. We've no interest in coming and attacking people's communities. That's not what we're about. In fact, if the apostate Muslims and the Ahmadiyya and the Muslims that don't really believe all the crazy stuff, if they want to join us, they know they're welcome. I mean, we've had loads of ex-Muslims stand with us down through the years, literally, standing on platforms next to us. So, people have got to bury this idea that we're kind of these sectarian crazies that just want to attack people. We don't. That's just not what it's about at all. We're just about getting people loving the country again and loving each other and building a genuine community, Don. That's what it's about. Now, if that becomes a crime, then put the handcuffs on me and take me away, because I'm quite happy to go to prison for that and sit in a cell and read my Bible or whatever it is that you're allowed to do in prison. Well,
you got to protect your children too at the same time, and there's still an epidemic of grooming, and I don't know if I can say it on here. The R word, jihad, but you got to protect your daughters and make sure all that stuff doesn't happen. So people got to continue to speak out. You know what I mean?
My daughter's 35 and she's well able to protect herself.
Good for her.
She can knock him out as much as I can, Don.
Good.
But no, I mean, so this is it, and I think we keep doing what we're doing. We've got a good team there. I think if Tommy goes to prison, I think there could be an uncontrollable response to that. I don't want there to be an uncontrollable response, but I think if Tommy goes to prison, there could well be a backlash that we can't control, because at the end of the day, he's the guy that they're going to listen to. If he's not there, who is going to be there calling for calm? And this is the crazy thing about what the state's doing. They don't realize that because they're so obsessed with the imaginary bogeyman of the far right that they can't see
EDL.
The
The
EDL,
zombie,
yeah.
the zombie EDL's been dead for 10
exactly.
years.
Back from the dead, the corpse of the EDL is, it's like Marley's ghost, for goodness sake. I mean, it doesn't exist. And even the police in Merseyside were talking about the EDL, and it is not there. Like, I know all the guys that were in the EDL. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing. Nobody's interested in that. That was 10 years ago when they were all young lads and they were all, full of, passion and running about and but that's not what this movement's about at all. It's not about that. It's about getting the grannies, the granddads, the kids, having these family events. I mean, what was that event like? Now let's talk about the 27th, because like, get your take on, because we've done all the negative stuff. Let's talk about the 27th, because I
thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
The 27th was absolutely brilliant. Just the way the people came together. Both of the demonstrations that I've participated in, the June 1st and the July 27th, were just unbelievable. It's really one of the greatest memories of my life. The hair on my arms just stood up. I got chills just from we turned that. I'll tell you, John, let me talk about June the 1st, because that was the first one. It's my first experience with it. And, we all got together in the morning when we got to the site. We got to Parliament Square early. Tommy wanted to check out the screen, make sure everything worked properly, and look at the setup. And then people started collect. I can't remember where did we meet everyone down the street? Where was that?
Oh, Victoria Station.
Yeah, Victoria Station.
Yeah.
Victoria Station. So we left there. And we had got different reports. Like, one person said, "Oh, I heard there was only 500 people that showed up." Another person said 1,000. Somebody said something else. So we really didn't know what to expect. And we went down the street there and turned that corner to Victoria Station, and that just massive people, it just hit me. I was like, it was one of the greatest moments of my life to see that kind of support, not just for Tommy, but for freedom and for the UK. And gosh, man, I remember marching, because I was with you guys in the front with the banner, and just that mass of just the people just pressing against you that whole way. What was it? What is it? About a mile we walked? It
was about 3/4 of an hour walk.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
And we walked that whole way with thousands of people, and made it to Parliament Square. And I just, man, the feeling, and it was the same on the 27th. It's just a feeling like, we don't really do now. The people who put on demonstrations like that in our country, we have like the conventions, we have the TPAC and the stuff like that, but it's just not the same as people organizing just spontaneously for freedom. You guys still have that old school form of protest you do that we now the left, they'll get together and they'll burn a bunch of stuff and burn down stores and cars and create all kind of violence. But the right here, we don't really get together by the thousands like that, do demonstrations. And you guys have the speaker's corner where you're standing on a soapbox, still doing that old style political preaching. We don't do that here. So I wish the folks here in America could get a feel for what I experienced that day. And I think if everyone here could experience what I felt that day, that we would do more of that on our side here in America. That's just one thing we don't do. Now, we speak out. We're online and we have conventions and stuff like that. And we're very passionate patriots here. We just don't gather like that spontaneously. And there was just something to be said for that. And the emotion and the just raw emotion you get when you're experiencing that type of gathering of freedom-loving, patriotic-minded people. It was an amazing experience for me.
And I think a lot of what spurred that on, Don, because there've been these horrendous anti-Semitic pro-Hamas marches have been going on for months, and we stood against them a few times, and that was interesting, But the reality is, when we went out there, we said we don't want to be anywhere near any of those sort of people. We want to make sure that it's just us with our flags, doing what we do. And it was great. We had at the last one, Don, we had the Iranian royal flag, the Persian flag.
Yeah.
We had Israeli flags. We had Indian flags. We like flags of so many different nations. It just showed the sort of
an American flag. I brought the American flag.
Yeah, we had American flags. Yeah, we had American flag. And Canadian, of course, with Canadians there. So the whole of the I think we said we'd Irish flags. I think we'd Irish flags at that demonstration as well. Don, I think we'd Irish flags at the on the 27th of July with Northern Irish flags. So it was just amazing to see that family of people that are connected with with the UK coming together. And again, it was multicultural. It was in the best sense of the word.
It really was.
It was people from. It was that melting pot which America has done so well, and which we were doing so well until the. What people have done to our country is evil, what they've done, especially by inviting vast numbers of unvetted people from crazy parts of the world that have been racked by Islamist terrorism and civil war and oppression. And look, what business does someone from Syria have in the UK? Like, really, we've never been involved officially in the conflict in Syria. Never. So why should we be letting people in from Syria? What business does someone from Libya? The guy that blew up the Ariana Grande concert, which is that's when I first got involved after that horrendous massacre in 2017. Like, his parents came to the UK in the 90s, and they were known jihadists. Gaddafi had thrown them out of the country, and they came to Great Britain. And 21 years later, Salman Abedi blows himself up and kills a room full of little children. And again, we were all told to get bumblebee tattoos and sing "Don't Look Back in Anger." It's just it's ridiculous, and the gaslighting of the British people and the cowing of the British people. So I think what we're trying to do, Don, we're trying to give them that outlet. And again, if you could do it in the States as well, so it not only builds a movement and builds a political movement, it builds community, and people get together. And obviously not everybody gets on all the time, but people get together and get on as well as they can. And it builds that sense of community and friendship. And you make friends at those events. And very quickly you bond and you have a really good friendship with someone really quickly, because they believe exactly the same as you believe, and I mean, they're not cheap to put on. I think that last event cost about $100,000 or something like that, which would be about $150,000. But man, it was worth it. It was worth it. But so I think we just need to do another one. We need to do another one quick and again,
because you can do it, man. Because they're trying to kill the momentum, is what they're doing with you guys. So
we've got to do the We've got to do the opposite of what they want. They want us to be violent, we'll be peaceful. They want us to stop doing demonstrations, we'll do more demonstrations. They want us to stop doing videos because we're scared, we'll do more videos. That's right. What we've got to do. We've got to push back. And as much, I mean, you've got to be careful what you say now. You can't say things that you would have said in the past because the laws are changing all the time. But you've got to push those boundaries as much as you can. And just see where the stress.
But are the laws changing, or are the people changing? Because you got this. What law has changed that's allowed Keir Starmer to come in and start just arresting people willy nilly?
The internet harms legislation has gone through Parliament, so that's as far as I know is enacted now. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's really nasty and is deliberately set up.
When was that?
I think it became law in 2024. So this is the crazy thing. This is how crazy this is, right? So the Conservative Party pushed through the internet harms legislation, which was meant to be about stopping like young kids being, duped into committing suicide online by all these horrendous, groups that there are, right? Which who can dispute with that? That's fair enough. I don't mind, laws like that. But of course, Hope Not Hate got involved in framing the law. And they put loads of. They managed to influence the way that law was framed.
Well, that's how they do it. They tug at your heartstrings with one aspect of the law over here. They want you to look over here, pay no attention to this, and that's what's happened with your Terrorism Act and our Patriot Act. Oh, we're going to protect you from terrorism from now on, but don't look over here where we're going to be able to spy on you and bug your home if we believe in the slightest bit you're maybe having a conversation with somebody who may commit a terrorist act, and you've lost all your freedoms because you're talking to this person over here. So they've used the Terrorism Act and the Patriot Act to dupe us all, and they do that. And I think this new law, what did you call it, the new law? What is it called?
Online harms, the online harms legislation.
Online harms. Okay, so they're doing the same thing. They're tugging at your heartstrings with the one aspect, while they're sneaking in all this totalitarian communist BS over here.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing. And that's how they're getting these people. And I mean, the other thing is what they're doing is they're getting the guys that were out on the street that weren't actually committing any violence. They're getting them to plead guilty to violent disorder. So these guys, some of these guys will never have been in front of the police before. They've never been arrested before. They don't know how to handle the police. They're dragged into a police cell. These are people in their 50s and 60s. Think about that woman that was said a few crazy things online, and she was, I think she was given like 2 years in prison. Her husband is like 76-year-old, really ill, and she was his carer. She's in her 50s. She's been taken away from that guy. You don't know what might happen to that guy. They may never see each other again. That's how disgusting this is.
We have something here that is supposed to keep that from happening, because you're not supposed to be able to implement cruel and unusual punishment on someone. So basically the punishment has to fit the crime, right? And really the first that we've seen of that over here is January 6th, where that didn't happen, where they held them. They held these folks on basically the Patriot Act, I think, is the main thing they're holding them on, these terrorism charges, so that they can keep them in jail as long as they want before they even get to go. We're supposed to have a speedy trial. The accused has a right to a speedy trial here, and that has not happened with our January 6th defendants. They've rotted in jail cells, some of them without even having a trial. So, and I think that's kind of what they're doing to your folks over there. They're either forcing them to plead out so they get a lighter sentence, and then even when they plead out, which is ridiculous, they're still giving them 2 or 3 years in prison just for the most ridiculous things, posting a meme or shouting at a dog.
Exactly. I think everyone has got to be. If you think you're not guilty, you plead not guilty. You don't just take a deal. You just say, I'm going to dig the heels in. I'm not guilty of this, and you just fight it. But it's chilling. It's chilling, Don. And I mean, what we don't want all the leaders of the movement to get taken out, because if everybody gets taken out, everyone that's articulate gets taken out, that's pretty much what they want, because then you're gonna
somebody's got to pick up the flag, man.
Exactly. And that's why you need to be looking at training people. You need to be looking at teaching people exactly what we believe and why we believe it. So we kind of got this other thing going called the pledge, which is basically a document that explains exactly what we believe, why we believe it. It's very mainstream. It's very centrist in a way, but it's a good document that kind of pushes out the extreme right, pushes out the extreme left, and you'll be left with people that just believe in good stuff. That's the simplest way of, we sum up freedom, equality, democracy, and sovereignty. They're the 4 points that really are the bedrock of it. And there's a lot of other stuff added in there as well. So we're pushing that through, but we need to get on it, and we need to get another event going really quickly, because if Tommy's going to be back for this trial at the end of October, which he has to be, we need to do something before then, and we need to highlight this, and we need to get some, we need to get some big players from around the globe speaking at this next event. We need to get the Gert Wilders, I don't know if Jordan would do something, but we need some really big voices. It would be
huge if we could get Jordan to step in, or get Charlie Kirk or someone like that to come over. Bring as much attention to it as possible. Let me ask you something. If it weren't you and Tom, who would you, if you could think of any one person to pick up the flag other than you and Tommy, who would it be?
I think Lawrence and Calvin. I'm very impressed with Lawrence and Calvin. They're fearless.
Great choices.
They're good guys. I mean, the problem is that what I'm thinking is if they come for Tommy, and they come for me, and they come for Lawrence, and they come for everybody. That's basically. And again, I'm almost scared to say about who you want to pick up the flag, because you know that they're going to be monitoring this, and they're going to go, okay, we'll put them on the list as well. So you're making a hit list one. Carl Benjamin's a great guy. He's doing a lot of good stuff with the Lotus Eaters. Obviously, there's other stuff going on as well. I mean, there's stuff like the New Culture Forum, which Peter Whittle's running, which is absolutely fantastic. Reform, I'm not happy with the leadership reform. I'm not happy with Farage. He bottled it and threw Tommy under the bus a few weeks ago. I'm not happy with that.
I was going to ask you, what in the hell is going on with Nigel Farage? Why isn't that guy?
He's done this. He's done this since 2018. I'll tell you a story. Right in 2018, we took over UKIP. What happened was when Gerard Batten, who was an MEP at the time, he saw the big demonstration. We did a massive demonstration in London, Very similar actually to the ones that we've just been doing with 70,000, and it was mainly football men, right? Football lads, football lads, in other words, tough guys, right? Yeah. And so football lads and veterans, that's what the crowd was. Obviously, there was quite a few women there, but it was on the majority, it was men, because it was just after these terrorist attacks, a lot of tension in the air. And we did speeches from the top of the double-decker bus in Park Lane, then we walked down to Westminster Bridge and laid a wreath and all that sort of stuff. It was electrifying. I mean, just to be there, biggest thing, until, in fact, it could have been, in numbers, it could have actually been bigger than what we did in Trafalgar Square, maybe.
Really?
Or certainly on a parity. It was massive. It was massive. And we walked through London silently. You could have heard a pin drop, right? No violence. We policed it pretty much ourselves. The police wouldn't be able to police it because it was the football firms from every single part of the country came to this. So proper men that could look after themselves. So anyway, the Gerard Batten, who ended up leader of UKIP, he saw this and he went, I want you guys to all join UKIP. But and at the same time, I'd said to the lads in the veterans, says, look, we need a political solution here. I've just come from Northern Ireland. We just come out of 30 years of conflict. If this goes wrong, because there's veterans and there's football lads here, this could go very wrong very easily. I says, what we need is a political voice and a political solution. So I met Gerard Batten with one of the football lads. We met him in Birmingham, October 2017. And we hatched this plot to take over UKIP. So through a little bit of, intrigue and skullduggery, and just obviously the democratic process, we managed to get Gerard, who was absolutely on board with everything that we believed about Islam and about what was happening in the country. We managed to get him installed as leader of UKIP. Gerard, and in the background, I'd be talking to Tommy saying, Tommy, what about getting you into UKIP? And there was all these rules in UKIP that he couldn't join. So I was talking to Gerard saying, what about Tommy? And I'm kind of the go-between and eventually they kind of met and as it is with anyone meeting Tommy, they got like a house on fire, and Pete McElvenna got Lord Pearson involved, and Lord Pearson met Tommy, and we met all these guys. So basically, we had UKIP in our movement, and the two things were going really, really well. Farage came in and called us all tattooed thugs and hooligans, and sunk the whole project. Simple as that. That's what happened. So we could have had UKIP as a political force. It wasn't just Farage, there was other people as well that were involved in sinking the project. But we could have had UKIP as a political force standing on these issues that are very important: freedom, equality, democracy, sovereignty, standing up against Islamism and the threat from radical jihadists, which is what it was all about back in 2017. We could have had a party like that growing and building since 2018 when we actually did the deal with UKIP. And it was, I think it all fell apart. My memory fails me now. It was either back end of 2018 or back end or middle of 2019, but it got sabotaged. So we lost that momentum and we lost that political voice. Farage went off and set up the Brexit Party, which he stood against, which he did very well in the it must have been 2018. Brexit Party did very well in the European elections. Got loads of MEPs. He was going to stand against Boris Johnson. He put all the candidates up and then decided not to stand, pulled them all out, and Boris got a massive majority. Okay, that seemed like a good idea to get Boris in. But the problem was that in the process of doing that, he destroyed UKIP. Now, UKIP's still there and it's still going. I've actually just joined UKIP again, but I'm very wary of any political party now. So what we're going to try and do now is do it the other way. We're going to form the movement around the principles of the pledge. So the movement gets formed first and we get however many we can get in. If we can get 10 million into the movement, 20 million, I think there's about 30 million people in our country believe what we believe. So we get all them involved in the movement, and then we go to a political party. And like I say, I've joined UKIP anyway. But I'm not passionate about UKIP. It could be any party as long as they sign up to what we believe. So if we have this mass of people, this critical mass of people, we can go to any political party, say, that's what we believe. If you can sign up to that, we will support you and we'll win you the next election. If you can't sign up to it, hit the road. We're not going to talk to you. So that's basically, so the score with Farage is he's done this time and time again where and what he did last week was, to me,
not supporting you guys is one thing, but openly lying and saying that Tommy was inciting these. Yeah. He came out and said Tommy was inciting, so he doesn't even know what the hell he's talking about.
Exactly. I mean, it was because I'll tell you what it was. He was terrified. He was terrified of what was happening, and it
Well,
showed.
because they were accusing him. They were accusing him of being inside.
So he went, "Oh, it's not me, it's him, sir." You know, it's like a little kid in the class. You just throw some paper at the teacher. No, it was Don that did it. You know, that's what he did. You know, and it was pathetic. It was absolutely pathetic. And
I saw an article. I think it was last week that said that the UKIP was open to Tommy Robinson coming in as an MP. Again, did you see that article?
Sorry, say that again.
They said that UKIP was potentially ready to open the door to Tommy being an MP.
Yeah, no, that's UKIP are on that. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, Tommy can join UKIP anytime he wants now, because all that structure's gone done. Yeah, so yeah, that's absolutely, that's a done deal. As far as I know, you know, I mean, again, I haven't spotted Nick. I know the leader of UKIP, Nick. He's a good lad. He's a young fella, and I think he's doing a great job. So he's like, you know, he's on it. He knows what's going on. He's a Christian guy. He's passionate. He's brilliant. You know, so I think Nick has got a lot of potential. But the problem at the minute is the Reform Party. Believe it or not, the problem is not the Conservatives or Labour Party, because the Conservatives are not winning an election again for a long, long time. The Labour Party, if we survive this, if he doesn't manage to change things so much and become so authoritarian that we are crushed, but I don't think he will. I don't think he in a modern liberal democracy, even though he's a communist and he thinks he's got power, he doesn't have as much power as he thinks he's got to just arbitrarily lock up peaceful, democratic, protesters and activists. He cannot do that. And if he can, then you realize.
Well, he's got a lot of judges going along with it right now.
Well, he has. But, you know, there'll be kickback on this. There will, and there needs to be kickback. And I'm talking about in the media and in legal terms. Somebody somewhere among the media must have a heart and must be brave enough to say what's happening here is immoral and wrong. And if they don't, then we've got our own media and we can do what we're going to do. But yeah, so that's basically what we need to do. We need to have a party that will win. And the only one I can see at the minute, Lawrence has got the Reclaim Party, which is great, because I think he's got some good people behind him. So maybe there could be some sort of an amalgam. And I'm just talking off the top of my head here. This isn't like inside knowledge. I'm just saying maybe there could be an amalgamation.
Lawrence who?
Lawrence Fox.
Lawrence Fox. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So Lawrence has got his own party. He started it kind of after all, because I mean, he was like, Lawrence was just catapulted into this. You know, he was an actor and he was sharing a few opinions. The poor guy was on Newsnight. The next thing, he's all over the front page of all the papers. You know,
he's happy to be out of London now.
Yeah, he's gone from being this mild-mannered activist to being, the reincarnation of Goebbels or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he's the nicest. Honestly, he's the nicest, most chilled-out guy that you can.
He is a nice guy. I like Lawrence.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Nice guy. And Calvin's the same. So Calvin was
like. Oh, Calvin's. I love Calvin. Calvin's
fearless. Awesome. I mean, and both of them are fearless,
Yeah.
But so there's a lot of potential to do what we need to do, but we've got such a short amount of time to do it in, and that's why I'm really torn.
Well, and the other thing is the Muslim population doubles every 10 years. So in 5 years from now, they're going to be half that, right? They're going to 1.5 times what they are now. So it's going to be even harder to win an election.
And that's a big problem. That's a big, because again, there's massive voter fraud. When we did the Rate of Britain films, I mean, we spent, that's another story, man. If we had time, we could go through that. But when we did those films, we had a lot of really, really good intelligence on what was happening in that community. We had a lot of operators on the ground that were doing stuff. Really high level people that had done, undercover work in Northern Ireland, that had been intelligence officers. And it was very professionally done and coordinated. And, I had a little part to play in that, which was one of the proudest, parts of my life, managing to put the little team together that we had, crawling about in the bushes in Telford. But we found out that these guys in these houses, a lot of them, when you got the intelligence on them, there was about 6, if you looked at the basically what the data was telling us, there was 6 people with very similar names living in the same house, so you could have 16 people supposedly in this house. But what it was it was just basically for fraud. So you'd have all these names that were very, very similar. So if the police come and knock your door and say, "Oh, is Abdul Hussein there?" "Oh no, Abdul Hussein doesn't live here. It's Asif Hussein lives here." You know, there was these little tiny changes in the names.
Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely incredible what was going on. And
well, we had thousands of people use the same social security number here to vote.
It's crazy.
I don't know. Do you guys have like a social security number, an identifier?
No, we register and we get a voting card, and you need to take some photograph. You need to take, well, Northern Ireland's different because again, in Northern Ireland, because the IRA were communists. So in Northern Ireland, we had the IRA at this for years, voter fraud. I mean, half of the Catholic cemeteries in Northern Ireland were voting during the Troubles. You know? I mean, it was just wholesale voter fraud was part of the course. You know,
our social security number, we get it at birth. So we're identified by that number for the rest of our lives. I don't know if you guys have something like that.
We do. We have a national insurance number, but
national insurance number.
Yeah, national insurance number. But the way it works with us, we just get a voter card. So you register, you put your name down there, and you get a voter card. So obviously, if the 6 different names for Abdul, Adul, and Ahmed in the same house, and it's really the same guy. It's those
are odd names.
Oh yeah, they're very odd names, you know.
Not common at all, huh?
It didn't happen with Bill, Pete, and Robert, you know. But honestly, what we discovered in that community. Do you ever see the TV show Ozarks?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right. Okay, and it was like
good show. It's a great show, actually. I like that show.
Yeah, brilliant. Loved Ozarks, and it looked like that was kind of like a normal community. But when you dug below the surface, you found out it was just mafioso running the place. Well, that's what it was like in Telford. It was run. All the criminality was run by a Pakistani Muslim mafia. It was as simple as that, and it was crazy. And these guys were sinister. We'd something like, I think two of our guys were staying in a hotel. 2 of the surveillance guys were staying in a hotel, and Tommy had lent them his car, right? And they went out early in the morning. They were going to go and do an operation. They're going to go and follow this guy. They went out in the morning to get in the car, and all that was left there was a car battery. The Muslims had come in, they burnt the car out, the police come in and towed it away. They got up, they slept right through it all. They got up and went, "Where's the car?" And one of them, they got a video, and one of the points goes, "That's it there." And it was all that was left was a car battery. And it was Tommy's car.
They burned it instead of stealing it.
They just burned it. They burned it to target the guys in the hotel, to send them a message. "We know exactly where you're staying." Right?
I see.
It was absolutely unbelievable. But and there was a lot of really, interesting. We got up to a lot of good fun in making those films. But man, I mean, but that absolutely. We'll put it this way, right? If Tommy had been lying about any of the stuff that we published, these guys would have sued him, right? And the reality is, not one legal letter came from any of those rapists. Not one. None of them turned around and says, "We didn't do it, Governor." They did in front of the camera, obviously, but legally, nobody challenged any of the evidence that we put forward in those films. And we made 5 films so far from the footage and the intelligence that we got.
Well, yeah, those are great too, and nobody's challenging Silenced either that I've seen. I mean,
nope. The judge did.
Like one of the most viewed documentaries of all time. It's got to be. 50 million people have seen the thing nearly.
I mean, how many people actually sit in it? It's an hour 45-minute documentary. How many people actually sit and watch an hour and 45? What they do in England now, the documentaries are 30 minutes because people's attention spans like a goldfish. Do you know what I mean?
They're used to scrolling on social media.
Yeah, exactly. Silence is an hour 45 minutes, but it's absolutely captivating, and you can't dispute it. Because when you look at it, the people are telling Tommy exactly what's happened. And again, because we had the surveillance techniques that we were using, some very high-end technology, nobody can dispute it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's a great film. Great film. Tommy's he's a really smart. I don't think people understand how smart Tommy is. The guy is brilliant, and if you just look how he can just speak extemporaneously for 2 hours straight on anything, substantively and extemporaneously, and then he goes and he becomes a journalist. He changes his whole image. He becomes a journalist. He's making these incredible films, these documentaries, And his reporting's amazing as well. I mean, so I think the guy's really turned himself around. And what's really sad to me is the fact that he's really trying to, not, the guy, Tommy's never been a bad guy, but we've all been young and we've done things a little bit differently than we would have as we've matured. But the fact that he's trying to I guess reinvent himself a little bit by doing his journalism and being a documentary filmmaker, and then they're trying to shut him down by making these claims that aren't true about him. To me, that's really sad. That because he's really something special. I mean, he's a great Patriot.
I mean, you know what? To be honest with you, it's a privilege to know him, and
it really is. I feel the same way.
I'll be honest with you, Don. I'm the sort of guy. I'll kind of hang about with people for a while, and then I'll kind of get bored of them, and I'm just like, and I think we're probably all a bit like that. But with Tommy, the more I get to know Tommy, the more I like him. I know his parents, and I know his family, and they're thoroughly decent people. And he is, listen, he's far from perfect, as we all are, Don. Do you know what I mean? We're all crazy. You've got to be completely batshit crazy to do this. You can't, if you're normal,
stand up to Big Brother for sure.
Stand up, we're standing up against you can't beat the government, really.
That's right.
So standing up against the government and the way he's done it. But he's a genuinely nice guy. But also talking about intelligence, when we went to the anti-Semitism thing. So I traveled to the anti-Semitism thing, right, with a Jewish guy, right, and Tommy, and we got there, and we're sitting in the cafe, and the police came in, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna, unless you leave, you're gonna get arrested for this, that, and the other, because you're such an anti-Semite." I mean, Tommy's the least anti-Semitic guy you'll ever meet in your life. So we were just like, we're eating our breakfast, just go away, leave us alone. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he gets bashed from that side for being a Zionist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You can't be a Zionist and an anti-Semite.
No, it doesn't really work. That's cognitive dissonance of the highest order, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I says to him, and there was a couple of guys came into the cafe. So we're sitting in the cafe. I says, mate, what are you going to do? I says, I says, we can just sit here. I says, because there's some big lads here, and those cops aren't getting through that door. We can block that door, and you can just sit here and have coffee and chill and do videos with people, and they're not going to get anywhere near you. And once the march is gone, it'll be absolutely fine. And he went, nope, I'm here as a journalist. You do what you want to. I'm going out to do my journalism. And I was like, right, okay. So we got to the steps of the cafe, and it was like there's a standoff, And I'm standing behind him.
I saw you standing right beside him that whole time.
I'm whispering his head, don't tell them, don't say anything, don't speak to them, don't engage with them, And but I mean, again, what they did, I mean, it was just monstrous. I mean, what they did to him.
The guy's handcuffed, and he's got 20 officers around, and they pepper spray him at point blank range. I mean,
it was almost like, I mean, and I've got to be careful what I say when I say this, but it's almost like, you see the sort of, the way the soldiers came for Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, it was almost that sort of level of bullying and violence, and the cops were just reprehensible. I mean,
everybody chooses Barabbas over Jesus, right? And they kind of do the same thing with patriots. They 100%. Choose the criminals over the Patriots. So it's very similar.
There's an interesting thing with Tommy I don't know if he's ever told you this, when he was in prison in it was EDL days. I don't know what they locked him up for, but anyway, he's in prison, and this vicar comes to him, and Tommy will tell you this himself. So he's spoken about this publicly, so I'm not giving away any secrets. But he said this vicar came to him, and he said to me, he said this vicar was the only churchman that he'd met that he felt that God was with this guy. This is what Tommy said, right? He says, I felt something about this guy when he prayed. There was something. God was with this guy, right? And this vicar said to Tommy, he says, you are the sacrificial lamb for this country. That's what he said to him. And this was like 10, 11, 12 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's gone a long way to sustaining Tommy in terms of him being able to carry
powerful. That's a powerful statement,
isn't it? I mean, obviously, as Christians, we believe there's only one sacrificial lamb, and it's Christ when we talk about salvation. But it's a different thing saying he's a sacrificial lamb for the country, because what he's saying is you're going to take a lot of hits here, son, and just be ready for it. And so something like, again, this is all I found this last few years to be to be extremely challenging, but I wouldn't have missed any of it for the world. I don't know about you, Don. I would not have done anything different to what I've done. It has caused me a lot of personal issues down through the years, but they seem to be good now. And I just what else would you do in your 50s? What else are you going to do? Play golf? Go fishing? Get out of here! Save the country. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, it's funny. Let's become a political activist.
Yeah, become a pariah, a political activist. Have your character assassinated. Be on goodness knows how many flipping watch lists from the every. It's when you go into a town and every policeman knows you by name. That's when you know you've either got a problem or a real problem.
Yeah.
But no, it's good. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's we've got to keep going, and even though it is stressful and it is hard, it's been an absolute blast.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. It really is.
It is. Well, that's the thing too. I mean, when you go to these things, when you're around the people in our movement, you just don't stop laughing. You just
everyone's just so great. Everyone is so great. They really are.
It's
they really are.
It's just good fun, and even when crazy stuff happens, So
yeah, I'm glad I got to meet you all.
Likewise, Don. Likewise, same with you. I mean, it's been a pleasure, and again, that's why I wanted to come on with you, because I think it's good to let people in the States know what's happening in Britain, and obviously it's good for you to.
Well, we've got to wake up. We've got to wake up here, because the only reason a couple of reasons we do have we tend to be, and a lot of people I don't think understand Americanism. They don't understand why we are the way we are, why we have this. We sort of have this inward security because of the rights that we have, the First and the Second Amendment, especially the Second Amendment, because we know, I can't remember who the Japanese general was right offhand, but they asked him, why don't we just invade America? He said, because there'd be a rifle behind every blade of grass, right? So we do have the largest standing army in the world. Our Second Amendment was created for the sole purpose to protect us from a tyrannical government. A lot of people don't even realize. A lot of people think, oh, it's for self-defense, it's for hunting. Yeah, it's great for those things, but it was given to us to protect us from a tyrannical government. So I think, and like I said, a lot of people don't understand why we have this security in America, and it's because of that. That's we're not where you're at yet, and because our population can absorb it, because we're such a massive country, right?
Yeah.
You guys can't absorb it any longer because you're a smaller country. So what we're seeing in you guys right now is our future. And that's why I want to wake the American and do as much of my part as I can to make sure everyone understands that, well, maybe we aren't safe because of our Second Amendment. If the right people get into office, if Congress flips, if the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court and the president all become leftists at the same time, we could very easisly lose some of those rights. Now, to lose our Second Amendment, that takes a big act of Congress, because it would take an amendment, which is 3/5 of Congress, I think, in order to pass an amendment. So it'd be hard to do, but we can't take that for granted either. So we do have some securities here and reasons we do feel so secure, but we need to start waking up and seeing what's going on with you guys, because I feel like you guys are 5 to 10 years ahead of where we may be if we're not careful.
Oh, totally. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see if we can push it. I mean, if we can do this peacefully, which to me, you have to do it peacefully. I mean, because the consequences of not doing it peacefully, because of, what I've seen in Northern Ireland in the past, however many years, 1987, nearly 40 years, it's okay now. It's calm. There isn't trouble now, and I don't think it'll ever start again. But what I saw in England in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and the violence on both sides, we were very lucky to get out of that without any fatalities. And that once someone had been killed, that would have been the Rubicon crossed. There'd have been no going back then. And thankfully, that didn't happen. And I think not in small part because of Tommy and other people on our side calling for calm. I think that those calls.
Oh, he immediately called for calm.
The day after Southport.
And I think they hated that he did. They hated it because they still accused him of inciting it.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. And people believe it. And people will believe it.
They do believe it. They do believe it, and they've said it to
Yeah.
me. People have said it to me, and and a lot of these these Muslims believe it, and they need to really give their heads a wobble and say, okay, actually, he didn't do that, But it kind of feeds into their narrative because they want a bogeyman. Everybody wants someone to hate. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think if we'd have crossed that line, it would have been very, very serious. If a white guy had got killed or if a Muslim guy had got killed, it would have been an absolute disaster. Or if that hotel that they set on fire, I mean, how stupid, setting a hotel on fire. I mean,
when I saw that, I could not believe. I was like, that's the dumbest thing you could have done.
Absolutely ridiculously stupid.
You could have done.
Ridiculously stupid.
Because that's what they want you to do. That's what they want you to do.
That's the whole thing. That's what they want you to do. And I understand people getting angry, right? But I don't understand people going out and acting on that anger and doing stupid stuff but then you see, if they don't realize that there's an alternative, that we are giving them an alternative, then they see their only option as violence. So that we've got to redouble our efforts to let people realize that you can do this peacefully and you can do it without violence. And I think it's the same in the States. If this happens on a mass level in America, what we're going through, because of the amount of firearms that you've got there, that would be a lot more difficult to do without people getting killed. Because it's a lot easier to shoot someone than it is to stab someone. Let's just be brutally honest.
For sure.
And that's in a way, I suppose, the only good thing about not having a large amount of firearms in the UK. But if it had got out of hand, I'm sure there are firearms there that the gangs have got, and that
Well, the bad guys already have them in your country, guaranteed.
Exactly. The bad guys have always got guns. They've already got them, and that's the that's the issue. So I think we dodged a bullet massively in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I do think that not in small part because of people appealing for calm and saying, "Don't fight, don't do this. This is not gonna help what we're trying to do." And even the football, a lot of the football lads, they just weren't involved in any of that nonsense. So they could have got involved with all sorts of stuff, but they didn't. They realised that it was a trap. And I think when we realize what's really happened there, we realize a lot of it was agitated by groups like Hope Not Hate and these sort of people. And again, I can't prove that, but that's my gut feeling that these sort of groups will have been pulling the strings in the background and actually rubbing their hands together with glee when this was happening, rather than doing anything to prevent it. But that's what we're up against, Don. That's what we're up against. But we'll see how it all pans out. But let's get another demo or another event and get you over. And are you coming to the next one?
I might be on the list, man. I'm not sure.
It's better than going to Florida or Hawaii.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
You can
as long as your prime minister hasn't seen any of my, because he might take it personal. I haven't done anything that's, I don't think violates your free speech laws, but I did tell your prime minister to F off. So I don't know. He may take that personal.
No, he hasn't. He's not that powerful. I mean, it was like that. I tell you what, we gave the old cops a run around outside Downing Street that Sunday night, didn't we? I mean, they really didn't know what to do with it.
That was a lot of fun, man. That was fun. The Downing Street protest when they locked Tommy up, and then the Scotland Yard went over to Scotland Yard and gave them what for. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. That felt more like that felt more rebellious than the demonstration.
It was.
You know what I mean?
And they kept, the problem they had was they kept saying to me,
the way you pushed back, man, I thought you just had balls of steel, bro. The way you were pushing back on the police there, wow.
They didn't know what to.
I was impressed. Let me say
the best one, Don, when they said to me, they said, well, what if they try to move? They try to give us all these reasons for moving away from the front of Downing Street. And the final one they gave us, we've got tourists that want to stand in front of Downing Street. I says, well, they can't. And they said, well, they've got to cross the road, and that's dangerous. I just said to the cop, I says, do they not know the Green Cross Code? I says, do they not do that?
I was there when you said that. That was hilarious. That was funny.
The cop, he didn't know what to say. He just walked off, and he just shook his head. He must just.
That was funny, yeah, man. You were really pushing back on those guys. I was like, dang.
Yeah, it was good. It was good fun. It was good fun, and it went on for about 2 hours. But again, you've got to do it in a way where you're not being aggressive towards them, and you're not giving them any reason to arrest you. But the big
I thought you went about it really well. Yeah, I thought you did. Yeah,
well, it was great. I mean, and again, how much it changed in 3 days. When the guys went back to Downing Street on the Wednesday, it was they were treated like like scum. You know, it was just, you know, again, just unbelievable the way the sort of the whole thing had changed. But again, I think we've got to do another one, and we've got to do it peacefully, and we've got to get what would really absolutely terrify the government is if we had 500,000, if we had 500,000 people at a demo.
Oh my God. They wouldn't know what to do.
They wouldn't know what to do, because, and that's what we've got to make this about civil rights and about freedom, and that this Stasi, Trotskyite, disgusting crowd of reprobates that are running our country, that they can't do this to the British people. They cannot do this because it's un-British. It's un-British. I count them as traitors, and they can't get away with doing what they're doing. And if we had
I feel the same way about our Democrats. I think
they are. They're all the same. They're all cut from the same cloth. They're all, you know, they're all cut from the same cloth, and they're dangerous as well. They're dangerous people because
very dangerous.
They're not leaders either. What you see with Keir Starmer, I see a man who is absolutely terrified of us. You know, he is terrified, and if he realized just how committed we are to the cause, he would be even more terrified. Because yes, we're doing everything peacefully and we're doing everything democratically, but we don't care what they do to us. Whatever they do, like you said, someone else will pick up the flag and someone else will stand behind us and step into our shoes, so they can lock all of us up if they want to, because someone else will come along behind us and step in. And if they think, you know, if they think they've got issues with us lot, well, what are the ones that are going to come behind us going to be like? You know, so they can do what they want. They can do what they want. But I'm convinced we'll win, and I'm convinced we've got God on our side. And that's the other. I mean, the other thing, Don, as well about those demonstrations. What about the Christian side of them? Absolutely phenomenal. You know, just a strong Christian witness. People praying the Lord's Prayer. Everybody got down on one knee to pray the Lord's Prayer. You know, I've never seen anything like that in my life. Car pulled up outside the house. I was just wondering if it's a police car, but yeah, you know, I mean, it was just incredible. Just and again, the Christian side of things gives a moderating, just a moderating, calm presence over the whole thing, you know. And again, I think if you've got all those things going on, how can you lose? You know, you can't. You know, I just don't think you can lose. You know.
Yeah, I knelt down with him and prayed too. Sure did. That was very moving.
It was powerful. It was powerful, Don. You know, and I think we've got to push for that. And you know, if we have a Christian revival, we have a revival of British culture. We have a political movement. This is going to be something that's never been seen in the United Kingdom. It
needs to go global, because all of our countries are experiencing the same type of tyranny all over the West. And that's one of the things you always hear me say, that it's this same thing is happening all over the West, and it's by design. It's the globalist takeover is what it is. 100%.
Absolutely. And wouldn't it be an amazing thing if that little guy from Luton, that little 5'6" guy from Luton who never backs down to anyone, was the catalyst to start peaceful revivals and revolutions across the whole of the Western.
I can tell you this: Keir Starmer and the government, they better do their best to protect him. That's all I can say.
Oh, well, listen, I mean, I tell you what, if he goes to prison and anything happens to him in prison, like, nobody's going to be able to contain what happens, and you know, because he's the only one that can calm things down. And I'll be honest, if he goes to prison, he gets killed. I'm not gonna do anything to instigate anything. That's not what I'm about. But I'm not gonna get involved if people want to.
You're not going to be able to do anything to stop it either. I can tell you that.
No, you're not, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Because why would you put yourself in that position where you know, if the state kill him, then I think that will be the Rubicon.
I said the same thing when Trump survived the assassination attempt.
Yeah,
I said the same thing. They better be lucky. They better be lucky. There's no telling what would have happened, you know. And
it's the same now with Trump. I mean, if they take, I mean, you know, Trump. I don't think Trump's out of the woods until he gets to be president. You know, what's this guy JD Vance like? Is JD Vance a good guy?
He seems like a good guy. I know him a little bit better. I wasn't a big fan before they gave him, but yeah, he's just he's kind of a hillbilly. He's came from very he grew up poor, impoverished in rural Kentucky. And yeah, he seems like a good guy. Yeah, he's definitely conservative. He's probably, I would say, probably even more conservative maybe than Trump is.
Yeah, well, Trump's not a traditional conservative, is he?
No, he's
kind
not.
of more,
No, he's
more
not.
like
In fact, he was Democrat his whole life.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing about it, isn't it?
And so socially, there's a lot of things that are still people would find liberal about Trump, I think. But from a fiscal perspective and from an economic perspective, he is as conservative as they come. Yeah, now, he's not one of these crazy leftist liberals. When I say liberal, I don't mean that, but I mean he does have some things about him that are socially liberal. He's not as I would say conservative on abortion as I would be. He still believes in the exceptions for rape and incest and things like that. Where my perspective is a life is a life. Either it's a life or it isn't. So on that, he's a little bit more less. I'd say less conservative. I wouldn't say he's a liberal, but he's less conservative than a lot of people.
But he's actually done quite a lot to cut down on the abortion, hasn't he? In the States, I mean, it was
100%. It was because of the 3 judges that he appointed to the Supreme Court is why they took abortion. They overturned Roe versus Wade and threw the decision back to the state. So now I don't know if you're familiar with how our federal system works, but it's supposed to be localities should have the proportionate the majority of the control, right? Yeah. So that's what happened with Roe. The Supreme Court determined that should have always been a state decision. That's all that happened, and people went up and always ended the right to abortion in the United States. The world's going to end, but that was just a lie. That was all propaganda from the media. It basically put it back in our localities where we live, and we get to decide whether we want abortion or we don't want abortion. Do we want it at 6 weeks, or do we want it at 12 weeks, or do we not want it at all? We get to make that decision now. And that's how our system of government is supposed to work.
Exactly. And I think the thing with the abortion thing, I don't know how many there's been in the States, but I think in last time I checked, it was something like 8 million in the UK since I think it got on the statute book in 1968. Now I was adopted, right? And I'm not casting any aspersions on my mother whatsoever, but I wonder if I'd have been conceived maybe 3 or 4 years later when it was socially acceptable to have an abortion, whether I would have made it out the womb, and that's why I, like obviously from the Christian
Christian scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And again, and I'm not throwing anything on women that have had abortions, because again, they've got caught in that system and kind of pressured by the acceptability of it. So to me, it's the state legalizing abortion that's the problem, not the women, because you don't victimize women that's been in that position for whatever reason, because I don't think any woman goes lightly and says, "Oh, I'm going to have an abortion." You know what I mean? Right. Maybe some do, but to me, it's the state that is legislating for that sin and kind of signing off on that. So, yeah.
Let me throw this statistic. This is going to blow your mind. All right.
Yeah.
In 1960, the black population of the United States was 20 million. There were 20 million blacks in the United States in 1960.
Yeah.
Since 1972 or 73, when Roe versus Wade first came into play, right, since they legalized it or federalized abortion, 20 million black babies have been killed. So abortion has essentially wiped out the entire black population of 1960s America since Roe versus Wade. And it's a Democrat push. And, the Democrats are the biggest racists in our country.
Absolutely. Yeah.
80% of the Planned Parenthoods, which is the majority of the clinics that perform abortions are Planned Parenthoods, 80% of them were placed in black neighborhoods. So, yeah, that's the thing you try to get out there that I think a lot of the black community don't know, because here predominantly blacks vote Democrat still, but that's just one of the atrocities committed against. Not to mention the slavery. They fought to keep slavery. The Democrats did. Jim Crow was all Democrats. The KKK was founded by Democrats. Civil Rights Acts. Not a whole lot of Democrats signed on that. It was the 65 Civil Rights Act was passed predominantly by Republicans. So there's a lot of things the Democrats do. I mean, look at all the statements. Joe Biden opposed busing for blacks. He opposed segregation, he opposed integration of our schools. So many things the Democrats have done to devastate the black community. Abortion probably being the biggest of those atrocities, basically a genocide.
It is a genocide. I mean, that's the way I see it, and I see that again, I don't know the demographics of the kids that have been aborted, but you can absolutely bet your bottom dollar Muslims aren't having the kids aborted. You know, it's going to be
no, of course they are.
It's going to be white working class Brits and probably black working class Brits who are the ones that are going through that system. And again, I don't blame the women at all. You know, at the end of the day, to me, you know, and I've spoken to women that have been through that, and they're totally traumatized by it. So, you know, and it's, again, you know, having spoken, you know, it's almost like when you're speaking to the survivors of the rape gangs, the trauma that those women had been through is like, you know, is just off the chart. So, but to me, it's a governmental thing, and again, it was the left brought it in the UK. It was the, you know, Liberals and the Labour Party, Roy Jenkins.
That's a blood sacrifice.
It is a blood sacrifice, and it's a curse. It's a curse on the nation, without a shadow of a doubt. So,
but they're not sacrificing to our God is the only thing. They're sacrificing to their God.
Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly right. And that's the thing about it. I mean, if you look in the Old Testament, when Israel turned away from God, they turned to Molech, and they killed the children in the fire. You know, so there's nothing. There's nothing new under the sun. This isn't new stuff. This is stuff that's been going on for thousands of years. You know, infanticide, and
we've got 100,000 missing kids in our country right now, and nobody knows where they're at. 100,000 missing in our country right now. Nobody knows where they're at. A lot of these kids coming across the border.
Yeah,
nobody knows where they're at because they just go missing. Yeah, nobody knows where they're at.
And do they think that's mass pedophile rings, or what are they?
Some, I think a large portion of it is, I think a large portion of it is pedophilia. A lot of these kids will come across with a coyote, one of these coyotes. They'll have these wristbands that they'll claim them, and then a lot of them they'll do DNA. They were doing DNA tests. I don't know how much since Biden came in, because they said, what I understand is Biden got rid of a lot of that DNA testing. So they found that these kids who they were saying, "Oh, this is my kid," it wasn't really their kid. They were bringing them across, and then they just put them off with some person who told them that they were their relative, and ends up not being their relative, and the kid just disappears, and now they don't know where they're at. So it's a travesty, man. It's a travesty.
You know, and that's
you don't ever hear about it on the news or anything.
No, you don't. You know, and again, it's the same with the grooming gangs. There was a million. They reckon there was 1 million girls were you know, white, and not just white English and Sikh girls. 1 million were groomed and that was probably 7 or 8 years ago when they were saying there was 1 million grooms. So how many more now? Because again, it's still happening. It's still been covered up. You know, it's just that they're making it more difficult to prove now. They're using different methods. But when any of these girls get groomed, do any of the brothers and fathers go confront these guys or do anything about it? Or nope. And you know, I know if anyone lays a finger on my daughter, it's, you know, I'm not going to hold back. Like, I mean, you know, let's say my daughter's well able to look after herself, but you know, so the reality is, and I'm not saying that, you know, hyperbolically. If you know, if anyone touched my granddaughter, I'd be exactly the same. I'd be, you know, you just do whatever you got to do. My
life. The way I feel about it, my life's pointless at that point. That point in my life would be pointless.
Just as a man, it's like if someone you know, attacks your wife or something, you know, as a man, you can't just stand there and let that happen. You know, you've got to stand up, you know. That's so right. I mean, I heard of an instance in Dublin where there was a guy, and he was a Dublin gangster, and I think it was a Moroccan guy, raped his daughter while she was at university, and I heard that he disappeared and you know, went in the boot of his car and was never seen again. But again, it's anecdotal. I don't know who the guy was. I don't know who the girl was. But I think it's pretty nailed on that happened. But and maybe it's happened more and we just don't know about it. You know, maybe people have, you know, pushed back against it. But again, I must admit, that was probably the most difficult thing in making those films, was knowing what these scumbags had done. And, you know, but I think the revenge that we got for the girls was the fact of them being shamed in front of their local because a lot of them had curry houses and all this sort of stuff. You know, they were absolutely humiliated in front of their customers. They were humiliated in front of world opinion.
Didn't some of those guys have to close up shop because they lost so much business?
Yeah. Some of them are back in Pakistan. They've fled. They've gone. Yeah. You know, some of them will still be there because they'll brass it out. But you know, everybody knows what they've done. The evidence is there. So that, you know, the problem is though, Don, a lot of these guys won't have any shame anyway, because they don't think they've done anything wrong. They just think it's part of what their culture's about, you know, which says everything
part of
you need
their
to know about.
part of their religion too, right?
That's absolutely. Well, Aisha was what, 9 years old when Muhammad raped her, so you know. And again, we won't be able to say that soon in England, because they're going to bring in these new laws that's going to ban you from speaking against Muslimness, which means you can't criticize Muhammad.
Well, it's in the Quran. You can't quote the Quran.
Well, not if you quote it negatively.
Oh,
you know,
that's all subjective, though, right? Was he quoting it negatively?
the stuff about Aisha's in the Hadith, but and probably in the Sunnah as well, which is the biography of Muhammad. But the Sirah, but the Quran. I mean, the Quran's got some pretty, you know, spicy stuff in there as well. I mean, you know, if you look at what they say about the Jews, you look at what they say about the Christians, you look at what they say about the non-believers. I mean,
first comes Saturday, then comes Sunday, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I had the misfortune of reading something the other day, and it was about where they're calling the Christians and the Jews pigs and monkeys, and that's in the Quran. It's Surah 560, somewhere around there, where they're just very openly calling us pigs and monkeys. You know, that's the Christians and the Jews. You know, and that's what we've imported into our country by the million. What could possibly go wrong?
That's the problem. They don't assimilate.
Well, a supremacist death cult won't assimilate. You know, it's as simple as that. They're not going to assimilate. You know, but at least you can still talk about this stuff, Don, because very soon we will lose the ability to talk about it.
You just send me notes of everything you'd like to say that you can't say, and I'll say it for you.
Just write to me when I'm in prison, Don. That's all I'm saying.
I'll come see you. I'll do better than that.
Well, that'd be good. Bring a file. You know, bring a file and a cake or something like that. You know, break me out of jail. You know, but
we'll do, man.
Nah, listen. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But we've got to keep fighting, and we've got to keep doing what we're doing. Don, man, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Listen, we could go on for 3 hours, but you kind of got to put a cap on it. So
I got to put it in somewhere. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. You don't have your dinner yet, Don. Have you had anything to eat yet?
No, I'm going to go eat here in a second. But yeah, for your viewers out there, if you want to follow me, I'm at Real Don Keith on X.
Yeah, and I'm terrible at giving out what I'm on. I'm on Twitter. I think it's I don't even know what my handle is on Twitter. Don, you probably know better than I do. It's Richard Inman. Just search for Richard Inman on Twitter. This is for your guys, because if you got any people watching on your
I don't know, because we did it so quick. We figured it out at the last minute, so I didn't have a chance to post it on my X. So next time we'll have to try to get ahead of it. And I'll
totally. We need to do all this. I mean, I'm terrible at all this technical stuff. It never works out as well as it should.
Yeah, I'm not the greatest either.
But listen, the thing is, our superpowers, we're able to communicate, Don. Do you know what I mean? That's what God's given us. You know.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Richard. I appreciate it, man.
Likewise, Don. It's been a pleasure. So look, let's dive off. We'll have a quick 5-minute chat in the back room when we get off. And guys, again, I know we haven't done much with the comments tonight, guys, but Don is an interesting guy. I'm sure you all wanted to hear what he had to say rather than go through a whole lot of comments. And thanks for everyone coming on and staying on and watching for nearly 2 hours of a live stream. It's let's do loads more of this. Let's just really annoy Keir Starmer and all his lackeys and all the people that really hate us by keeping doing this stuff as much as we possibly can. Okay, guys, see you all soon. Just going to end here, Don.
See you, folks.